LEGO has long had a fascination with the deep ocean. It's been said that the ocean is the true final frontier, and LEGO has always let their imagination run wild with that. And nowhere is that more apparent than with Atlantis, the most elaborate underwater theme LEGO ever devised. There's no less than 23 sets created for the theme, and today we'll be taking a look at each and every one of them, diving deep into what makes this theme so memorable and special. There's a lot, and I mean a lot, to cover. So hey, let's take a closer look. Atlantis hit shelves in January of 2010, accompanied by a 22-minute short animated film simply titled Atlantis the Movie, which debuted on Cartoon Network. Professor Samantha Rhodes joins a team of salvagers to help her uncover the lost city of Atlantis. The salvage team, comprised of team lead Ace Speedman, First Mate Lance Spears, and scientist Jeff Fisher, is skeptical at first, but they quickly come around to the idea after they encounter a couple of mythical sea creatures. And that's where we pick things up. Our journey to the lost city of Atlantis begins with Wave 1's smallest set, Monster Crab Clash. Oftentimes, the smallest set of the wave usually is pretty forgettable and lackluster, but what I really like about this set here is that it gives you a taste of everything LEGO Atlantis has to offer at a budget. Mythical sea creatures, and a key that will eventually unlock an important secret on our road to Atlantis. Oh, and I almost forgot one of the most important things that every Atlantis set has: a ton of stickers. Back in 2010, it all would have been nicely accessible at a $7 price tag. Let's go ahead and take a look at the diver minifigure first. This is Axel. While Axel Storm never shows up in the Atlantis movie, he still plays an important role in the salvage crew as the tech expert. He's the most serious of the team members and responsible for building out the team's impressive range of vehicles. And I think you can see with this minifigure and all of the figures throughout the theme, this is where the print budget went to. There are, at least to the best of my knowledge, no prints throughout the entirety of the Atlantis theme in the actual playsets themselves, outside of the minifigures. But even the divers are done up in exquisite detail. Yes, they will get repetitive. You're going to see every single named character done up in the same exact suit throughout the course of the entire series, but it's a really cool suit. Atlantis introduced a new scuba headgear piece, and it's got some really interesting connections built into it, especially around the back, where you can see some Technic pinholes on the sides, and then I believe the air tanks can accommodate a stud each. So there are several instances actually that we'll see throughout this theme where the designers use these attachments to create various enhancements to the divers. The bulk of the pieces in this set go toward creating the monster crab, and you get a really good idea of what the Atlantean creatures are all going to look like. Black with these really vibrant accents. The stickers supply some really interesting rune detail, and I really love the aesthetic of these critters. They are in many ways similar to the designs that we saw in Aqua Raiders, another theme that I've done an extensive revisiting video on, but these really up the contrast. It's a really unique look, and I think it fits the theme and the vibe so well. As you would expect from a crab, there's tons of articulation potential here with the ratcheting Technic joints for all the legs, and then some hinges and some clip pieces for the pincers. Not a life-changing model, but actually for $7, looks really quite good. Now, the crab is guarding one of the Atlantean keys, one of 5 keys needed to unlock the portal of Atlantis. Fittingly, this key is adorned with a crab, and this just so happens to be an orange key, matching the color scheme of the crab once again. For whatever reason, this is the rarest of the keys. It is only included in 2 sets. All of the other 4 keys are each included in 4 sets altogether. This is included, ironically, in the cheapest set and also the most expensive set of Atlantis. You'll be happy to know though that you can typically pick these up on Bricklink for well under 50 cents a piece each, no matter what color they are. They're cool elements, and I feel like everybody should at least own 1 full set of keys, right? All in all, a solid start to our Atlantean lineup. Let's check out the next set. This is Wreck Raider, a set that focuses far more on the divers side of things. Here, we're introduced to our first diver aquatic vehicle, and of course, that lovely red and lime color scheme, which the Atlantis theme is so well known for. You get 2 minifigures this time around. Ace Speedman, leader of the Atlantis crew. He's got a really fun eye patch design there, but otherwise, his entire costume is identical to Axel's that we saw in the last set. And here we get our first Atlantean Guardian minifigure, the Shark Warrior. The Atlantean Guardians are an absolute highlight of this theme. All of them look spectacular. The shark's head is made up of rubber, which LEGO tends to do for a lot of their sharper, more specialized head pieces. And ironically, it doesn't cover a minifigure head at all. It is just a single assembly there that slots right onto the neck piece. Once again, the Shark Warrior has printing on the legs, which is just really cool to see. They're very nice minifigures that have held up really well over the years. The shark here is guarding yet another key, this time the blue key, the Squid key. And in his other hand, he holds a pretty iconic Atlantis element. That's, of course, the pearl gold trident. All of the Undersea Guardians use this weapon. It's perfect. Now, when it comes to the Wreck Raider itself, I absolutely love the design of this vehicle. These underwater vehicles tend to be so sleek and aerodynamic looking. There's lots of rounded elements here, many of which at the time were probably recolored specifically for this theme in red. It's a really unique design, and there's some great parts usage here. It's all built around one of those classic X-Wing engine pieces, here in dark bluish gray. Interestingly enough, that's actually quite the rare recolor. I believe it's only included in one other set, the 2011 Pod Racers from Star Wars. There are a ton of stickers here, but I think they add a nice level of detail, though undoubtedly for such a small set, probably a pain to place. At the front of the vehicle, you've got some flick-fire missiles, of course, and a fun little feature of these is that they've got the classic harpoon element pinned there on top of the 1x1 cylinder brick. There's nowhere to sit in the vehicle, and Ace is just left to hold on to the handlebars and go along for the ride. It's a great vehicle, and you're about to see a whole lot more great vehicles coming from this theme. It's kind of fun to see how we're flipping pretty steadily between divers and the underwater guardians. The Guardian of the Deep here, a giant, terrifying shark, certainly looks like he will represent quite the threat for the divers. And speaking of divers, you do get one in this set. This is Bobby. Like the last 2 minifigures we looked at, his costume is identical. Still looks great. Bobby Bowie doesn't make an appearance in the Atlantis movie, but he shows up in plenty of sets. Our description of him surprisingly comes from the LEGO Brickmaster book, telling us that he's a salvage apprentice who aspires to be a member of the proper team one day. He's holding here the red key, which is fittingly the shark key, and the Guardian of the Deep doesn't seem too happy that Bobby has it. At 144 pieces, there's not a lot of elements in this set, so it's amazing that the designer was able to get a model this large. The parts are used very efficiently. Yes, this shark is quite skinny, but I think that more angular shape makes him all the more menacing. The tail fin is absolutely insane, but it works for me in this context. He is mythical. His proportions are going to be a bit different than your standard shark, I suppose. And once again, we get this lovely stickered runic detail throughout the shark. Even a bit of a gradient going on in the front, which is rather unique, but I really do enjoy it. The main play feature here is the jaw. It's just held in place by some of those rubber Technic pieces, which allows it to snap back into place very satisfyingly. Interestingly, the piece that you grab at the base is the top part of one of the classic hinge bricks. It's just enough to get your finger on, and its low profile helps it blend in with the rest of the model. We're going to see an example later on in Wave 3 of Atlantis where that's done a little less effectively. You can, of course, easily fit a minifigure in that mouth, which is great for play and just downright lots of fun. Some of the exposed Technic here is a bit unsightly, but not too uncommon for the time, and I'm sure LEGO still insists on doing that in their playsets today. One interesting element that's really worth pointing out here is the finned Technic angled piece that you'll see 4 times in this set. That piece was introduced specifically for the Atlantis theme. It would go on to be produced in 3 other colors and then discontinued in 2015. Also, that kind of split dorsal fin design looks really cool. Love how stylized this is. I think whoever designed this did a fantastic job. And to balance things out again, the divers are given a vehicle worthy of combating the Guardian of the Deep. This is the Seabed Scavenger, one of the only ground-based vehicles in Atlantis. It's very much still aquatic, don't get me wrong, but it's meant to travel along the sea floor. We also get 2 minifigures in this set. This time we're introduced to the diver Lance Spears. Lance Spears is the crew's first mate. The wiki hilariously describes him as dreaming of being respected by the crew and understanding women. In addition to Lance, you also get a brand new undersea guardian, the Manta Warrior. The Manta Warrior is one of the few figures across the theme who actually doesn't have leg printing. It would have been nice to see, but I definitely don't think it was 100% necessary. The Manta Warrior also has a specialized rubber head and a really creepy and interesting face print to go beneath it. I especially love how LEGO has managed to print, again, some of that really interesting, almost runic detail across the heads of these undersea guardians. I love the consistent and very unique aesthetic that you find throughout this theme. The Manta Warrior here is indeed holding a trans green manta key. We're already very close to finding all the keys we need to unlock the portal of Atlantis. Moving on over to the vehicle itself, I am once again just surprised by the level of smoothness that we're finding in these Atlantis diver vehicles, especially for this time period when LEGO was known to be a little more rough around the edges. It's just so sleek and streamlined. If you look at it from this angle, you can almost see a classic rocket design. Kind of fun. There's just barely enough room for Lance to fit in the cockpit here, though he does unfortunately have to take his flippers off to fit in there. That is one of my biggest gripes about the theme. I don't believe a single one of these sets actually has storage for the diver's flippers, even though none of the vehicles seem to accommodate the divers with flippers, and all of the divers come with flippers. All it had to be was a little bar on the back of the vehicle that you could attach those to. It seems just a weird detail to leave overlooked in every single set. Maybe a $15 set like this, it's not entirely necessary, but some of the larger ones, it feels pretty ridiculous. If I recall correctly, Aqua Raiders actually did a really good job of making sure you could store the equipment, even in some of their smallest sets. I know I found myself as a kid wishing for that as well. That's not just angry old bitter adult me talking here. We've also got some of the other essentials included in this set, more flick fire missiles, you betcha. The Power Miner's wheels are making a return here, and I think they fit the vibe very well. And then we've got 2 additional weapons, I guess you could say, at the front of the vehicle, which have a good range of motion about them as well. A wonderful saw blade, another familiar sight from Power Miners, and then some bionicle claws that can be bent. Though I will admit, it's very difficult to grab much of anything with this. Interestingly enough, the rather flimsy attachments to the wheels almost serve as a bit of suspension for the vehicle as it moves along. While this is not my favorite set by any means, I do tend to prefer the more submarine-looking vehicles. I still couldn't help but be impressed by the sleekness of this design. Once again, the designer here has just made really good use of the limited parts budget available. It is here too that I can finally introduce you to what the instruction booklets for the theme would have looked like. There's nothing too bonkers crazy going on in the back, but there is some fun imagery here, showing you the complete, spoilers, lineup of sets for Wave 1, minus one special edition set that we'll take a look at here very soon, I promise. And also, you can see all the figures and keys you can collect from each set, which is always a fun touch, as, let's face it, the minifigures are definitely a highlight of this theme. They're so cool. Typhoon Turbo Sub is a vehicle that I remember being featured pretty prominently in a lot of the Atlantis marketing. And it makes sense, it has a very unique design and once again is quite stylish. Here we have 2 minifigures once again. This time we get Diver Axel holding the final key, the yellow turtle key, and we also get another Shark Warrior. You can't even be upset about getting duplicate warriors because they're all so cool. This set in particular introduces us to one of LEGO Atlantis' strongest selling points, and that's the amazing and very creative play features. And that's certainly what I love so much about sets from this era. They're just so much fun. I didn't have this set as a kid, so I really didn't quite understand what it did, but it does feature a bit of a transforming element. When you push this bit forward, The propellers flip back, revealing some weaponry hidden on the underside of the vehicle. On one side, you've got this grabby claw for snatching some keys away from some shark guardians, and then on the other, you've got one of those competition-style shooters. The mechanism itself is absolutely fascinating, as it relies more on system elements than it does Technic. Yes, there's still plenty of Technic holding this in place, but the mechanism itself surprises me. There's no doubt that this would be easier for kids to build, but it's also easier to see, and it manages to still look good while doing it. The whole mechanism locks into place with some clips on either side to lock it in this position, or the standard position, but I will say it can take quite a bit of power to overcome that clip connection. Regardless, once you get the thing moving, it's a pretty satisfying motion, especially if you don't lock it necessarily into place. You can just swap between these modes. It looks really, really cool. I don't know if I've ever seen anything else quite like that from LEGO, but do correct me if I'm wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if some sort of Ninjago set made use of a similar feature too. As will continue to be a problem throughout the Atlantis theme, the diver can barely fit into the cockpit if you take his flippers off, and there is of course no real place to attach those flippers to once he's in there. He just has to leave them on the seabed floor and hope he's got more back at the home base. You better believe there's more flick fire missiles here. The diver's vehicles have not disappointed us yet in that regard, and I believe they've all been different designs up to this point, which is creative, I guess. I love to see it. One of the coolest parts here is the Viking wheel, recolored here in red to house the propellers to push this thing along. It is not a set exclusive recolor though, as it shows up in the Fire Hovercraft from LEGO City. The set too has a very satisfying handle to hold, and I always appreciate that about a playset. Maximum swooshability, that's for sure. All in all, really fun design. Love the creative functionality incorporated here. Not wanting them to be outdone, the designers came back with another Atlantean Guardian set, and this time it's a big one. This is the Gateway of the Squid, our first taste of what the Atlantis architecture looks like, and I must say, I'm liking what I see. The set has 3 minifigures. Lance Spears makes a return here, and he's accompanied by the brains of the operation, Samantha Rhodes. Much of the story of Professor Samantha Rhodes, the theme's main hero, is pulled from a series of journal entries that could have been found on the LEGO Atlantis website. She's the granddaughter of a Dr. Artemis Rhodes, the man responsible for originally uncovering the map to Atlantis, which is the pyramid-shaped artifact that shows up in the Atlantis movie. Dr. Artemis Rhodes was never able to find the city and instead left the task to his granddaughter. In the Atlantis movie, Professor Samantha Rhodes tricks the salvage team into helping her by not being completely upfront about the purpose of her mission. The minifigure highlight, though, is the Squid Warrior. It's another beautiful and elaborate minifigure, standing out really nice with his dark red and gold color scheme. That special hat mold in particular just has some incredible detail on it, and it's amazing that they were able to print on top of that so cleanly. Removing that hat piece reveals an absolutely terrifying face underneath, but super, super cool. Atlantis wasn't pulling its punches. It is a scary theme. At first glance, you might honestly think this to be the portal of Atlantis itself, but no, this is just a little side mission, honestly, that unlocks a bit of treasure and gets you into a lot more trouble on your way. The whole build is beautifully composed, with this squid hovering over the whole site. It's held in place with a simple Technic mechanism, but I just love how this all comes together. It would have been very easy to have this simply be a side build, but incorporating it into the structure itself adds so much to the experience. It's all quite majestic. I think it's brilliant. And you can spin his terrifying mouth there. You do not want to be caught in that. In fact, you'd probably fare a lot better in this little squid prison hanging off to the side. What the Atlantis Guardians plan to do with the imprisoned divers, I have no idea, but it's a fun little storytelling element that helps you make the Atlantis story your own. I said it before and I'll say it again though, Atlantis has some amazing play features, and I'm about to introduce you to another one. Gateway of the Squid comes with the blue squid key, and if you place it in the right spot, it indeed opens the gateway itself. You can attach it to this very specialized key holder element, a mostly Atlantis exclusive element that made one outside appearance in a Pirates of the Caribbean set. The key fits perfectly into place, and it engages an axle below it. Without the key, nothing happens when you spin it, but with the key, spinning it opens the doors to the gateway. That's really, really cool. Very clever part design, both for the key and the holder itself. Now that we've unlocked the gateway, you can find the treasure at the top of the stairs, contained within a rather beautiful pearl gold chest. The treasure is nothing too out of the ordinary, just a bunch of classic LEGO gemstones, but definitely worth a little side trek here. However, don't get too excited, because you better believe there's a trap involved. I'm not entirely sure how this trap would function in reality, so you gotta use your imagination a bit. Turning a little actuator in the back flings the chest backwards, and I imagine sucks you into the pit below. From there, the Squid Guardian probably throws you in jail for trespassing. With the squid removed here, you can get a better idea of some of the details on the structure itself. You get an almost trident-like formation at the back of the build, which serves as a really nice backdrop to everything else. There's plenty of seaweed dotted around, and once again, the whole set just makes really efficient use of a relatively small number of parts. It all comes together to create something quite special, and this being the only structure in Wave 1 of Atlantis, I think it would help tide you over until the big sets came out in that summer of 2010. Like many of the themes of this era, LEGO always liked to sneak in a retail exclusive set to the lineup, and for Wave 1, that's Shadow Snapper. According to Brickset, at least, this was a Toys R Us exclusive set. You'll recall that one of the keys was a turtle key, so the designers at LEGO somehow wanted to fit a terrifying turtle into the theme. It just so happens that most turtles are quite beautiful and very much not terrifying. That is, of course, if you forget about the snapping turtle. A snapping turtle is such strange subject matter for LEGO to cover. I feel like they aren't all that widely known. There are plenty of them out here in the northern Midwest. They absolutely love our ponds and lakes, but it's definitely something I never would have thought of for the Atlantis line. In real life, these creatures are quite bizarre and very scary looking, and they can certainly inflict heavy damage on a human being. Don't approach these guys. They're called snapping turtles for a reason. The turtle has some great articulation throughout, with ball joints attaching the arms, as well as individually posing toes for the turtle, which allows him to very nicely hold a key. You are not getting this key easily from the snapping turtle. The most fascinating part about this creature's design, though, is the shell itself, which is comprised of these very specific bionicle elements, here recolored in a set exclusive black. These sharp black armor plates contrast really nicely with a very soft looking underside. A relatively rare recolor here, only appearing in one other set, which was Gateway of the Squid, which we just looked at. Rather like in real life, the snapping turtle here has an almost freakishly long tail. The head's attached to a ball joint, which allows for a lot of posability. The jaw can open just a hair, but better than nothing. The whole thing comes together to once again create a rather terrifying enemy to go up against, and I love how muscular and tough he just looks. I would not mess with this guy at all. Look how sharp and pointy this shell is. Yeah, this is a terrifying enemy. And unfortunately, the salvage team looks like they have brought their weakest vehicle to the fight. It's a unique design, but to me it comes across as a bit more messy than anything else. There's plenty of that good old sticker detailing. You've got flick fire missiles, you better believe it. And you've got two little spear guns at the back for lance spears to use. But when it's all said and done, I do think this is probably one of my least favorite, or even my least favorite, of the divers' vehicles. Seeing the snapping turtle in catalogs, I didn't really know what to make of it, but having it here in person, it really does fare a lot better. It's a fascinating set, but if one had to be a retail exclusive, it's probably for the best that it was this one. I can see this one having limited mainstream appeal, and that's probably why it was given the retail exclusive treatment. Wave 1 of LEGO Atlantis, though, really ends with a bang with the Neptune Carrier. This is certainly one of those sets I always dreamed of having as a kid, so very, very fun to have it and build it for the first time all these years later. The set has an impressive lineup of 4 minifigures. Most are familiar faces, but I do believe this is the first time we're being introduced to Jeff Fisher. Dr. Jeff Fisher is the team's marine biologist. As seen in the movie, it's his dream to discover a new species of sea creature while out on his adventures. Another minifigure highlight is the first use of those extra connection points on the scuba gear. Here you get some lights to help Axel see a bit better. Simple, but very effective. The Atlantis Guardians are mostly outnumbered in this set, but you also get an actual buildable manta ray, the only one in the entire theme. It is fun though to see some of those Paraka spine pieces done up in glow-in-the-dark opaque, and I can say definitively that these glow-in-the-dark elements still work really, really well. It's a simple build, but I think it does the job really well. I just kind of wish we got a bigger one at some point in the theme. But in the case of this particular set, I'm glad the parts budget went to the objectively gorgeous Neptune Carrier. As the Atlantis team's biggest vehicle and basically home base of operations as depicted in the Atlantis movie, it kind of lives up to the hype, doesn't it? While there isn't as much interior room as the Atlantis movie would lead you to believe, this thing isn't completely style over substance. There's a lot of fun things to do here. One of my favorite play features of any LEGO playset is the ability for it to split into multiple vehicles. There's been some really great examples that we've come across over the course of the Revisiting series. Think of the alien mothership from Mars Mission, which splits into all sorts of different vehicles. Another great one that we'll get to eventually is the Agent's truck from that original line of Agent sets, and the Neptune Carrier carries on that proud legacy of multiple vehicles in one. There's a simple little speeder out the back, nothing too elaborate, but pretty sleek and smooth considering its small size. It just clips onto the back with a Technic pin. But the real fun one, and one that I actually didn't know about until I built this set for the first time, and this blew my mind, is this ground vehicle that emerges from the front of the carrier. Yeah, the ground vehicle is also not that interesting to look at, but its seamless integration into the carrier is truly impressive. And another feature that I do really appreciate about this ground vehicle is that you can fit a diver into the driver's seat and still fit the whole thing inside the Neptune Carrier. Absolutely amazing. This little cargo compartment is made possible thanks to a really interesting part recolor, and that is the cement mixer half piece here recolored in red. It is, for the most part, hollow. It's blended into the rest of the design so perfectly, making it look like that element was designed specifically for this set, which it definitely is not. It is made for cement mixers. Such a creative use of that element. Some of the best NPU I've ever seen in a LEGO playset. It all just helps contribute to, once again, this really stylish design. I'm absolutely amazed by the curves and edges on this vehicle. It is so satisfying to look at, so satisfying to build. And that's not all too, this vessel does have a bit more to offer. You'll find some equipment storage on both sides in these Technic panels. Here we've got some spear guns, and then on the other side we've got some maintenance tools, a hammer and a wrench. It is unfortunate that you really can only fit one minifigure with, of course, no flippers beneath this big exclusive canopy dome recolor. Being able to fit 2 minifigures up here kind of feels like a must to me, and it's probably one of the only real problems I have with this set. Oh, and just in case you were worried, we've still got flick fire missiles on this set. 4 this time around. When I finally had the chance to build this a couple of years ago, I think it instantly became one of my all-time favorite playsets. It's fun to build, it's fun to play with, it's great to look at. It kind of checks all the boxes. And another delightful thing about many of these Atlantis sets is that they tend to be pretty cheap. I picked this up used for well under its original retail price. If you have the chance to get this one, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I do have both instruction booklets for this set, but there's only one key difference, and that's just showcasing the play features of this particular model. Like many waves of the 2000s, 2010s era, Atlantis is split into 3 distinct waves of sets. And like most summer waves, the June 2010 wave of Atlantis featured a lot bigger and bolder sets, but very much continuing on the same story that was begun in January of that year. The smallest set of Wave 2 already picks things up at $20, and this is Deep Sea Striker. With 260 pieces, this actually represents one of the better price per part ratios that you'll see throughout the theme, and those pieces come together to create quite the substantial model, and perhaps one of our most well-designed and intimidating sea creatures yet. I will admit though, that at first glance, it's a bit confusing what this is intended to be. Is it some nightmarish lobster? Not quite. The online product description describes it as simply an undersea scorpion, and instead of one stinger, it's got 2, because fantasy. It's awesome. The Undersea Scorpion takes on the same color scheme that we saw in the Monster Crab from the very first set that we looked at, and there's no doubt about it, the orange and the black just pair together so nicely. And I actually do love all the sticker detail that you'll find throughout. Compared to some Atlantis sets, it's not as bad as it could be. There's only 7 stickers, but in addition to that, there's just a lot of wonderful detail pieces that make this thing look as sharp and terrifying as possible. So many different teeth, whether that be for actual teeth, teeth on the pinching claws, or even just some teeth to create some sharp armored detail on the body of the creature, and teeth for toes, because why the heck not? It is worth pointing out that the spike here, the black base with the rubber orange tip, is an exclusive recolor to the set. The main play feature of this set is very simple. You can simply launch the stingers forward past the head to attack anything in front of it. It's not the cleanest of mechanisms, but for a $20 set, I think it gets the point across. I do like how the legs are constructed to help the whole scorpion lean forward. It really just adds to the intimidation. You do get a small diver submersible here, and I think for its size, it's actually quite respectable. It's got a single battle droid arm to grab onto a key, and this set features the green manta key in particular. Compared to Wave 1, I do feel like this model feels like a bit more of the same, maybe just scaled up a little bit. But don't worry, there's plenty of exciting sets here to come. And I can give you a bit of a tease as to what those sets are because I have the instruction booklet for this model. How cool are these? So in the next pages here, it's kind of funny. They've replaced that beautiful artwork of the Portal of Atlantis set with just an image of the actual set. It looks a little out of place amongst everything else. Still an awesome set. Can't wait to talk about it. But before we get to the portal, we need to talk about the Atlantis Exploration HQ. Now, in the Atlantis movie, the Neptune Carrier is framed as the base of operations, but obviously, as you saw, in practice, that doesn't really work so well. So this set is a welcome addition to the lineup. It always is frustrating when your protagonists don't have a base of operations. I think Power Miners ended up being a pretty good example of that. This is another set that I only ended up picking up a couple of years ago, but it totally lived up to the hype. So there are surprisingly only 3 minifigures included in this rather large set, all of which we've seen before. No surprise there. We've got a Manta Warrior, this time wielding a yellow turtle key. Ace Speedman is included in the set, as well as Jeff Fisher. Right now I've got Jeff operating yet another tiny submersible vehicle. There is no shortage of those within these Atlantis sets. I really haven't got too much to say about this one. The spears are new for the divers, but that's about the only interesting thing here. It can land here on the top of this platform, which I do like. And then we get to the base itself. And I don't want to dance around this fact for too long because it is a really cool selling feature of the set. This is a transforming base. And if you know me, you know that I love transforming Lego sets. So we can dip all these lights down, pocket this tower away, and this just lifts off the platform below, folds up, and you've got a fully functioning submarine here that actually looks really good, and it's closed up around all sides. Unlike so many of the other vehicles that we've seen, you can actually fit a lot of minifigures inside of here, which is really, really great. I love too that there's so many windows to see on the inside, and it's worth noting that this dome piece is an exclusive recolor to this set, actually as well as the front dome piece. That's a 6x6 ratcheting hinge dome. And then When you take it apart again and it folds out real nicely, it becomes even more spacious. We can take a look at the platform here too, which ends up being pretty lackluster all on its own, but there are some fun features. It's great to see the light gray dome piece, something that I'm familiar with seeing from some of the original Imperial Star Destroyer playsets, and that's what allows the submarine to just slide neatly into place. And then there's just a little crane here for some extra play value. Always great to see these hose elements here, just add some detail. All the fun stuff comes in with the submarine base itself. So of course you get this really fun kind of roll cage in the front, and that's where you can sit the driver. Easy to get in there. Love the level of detail going on. You've got plenty of weaponry with all these harpoons mounted on the outside. And I just want to point out some of the fun detailing here, some really unexpected parts usage, especially with the bottommost part of the hinge brick here, just to create some cool texture in the walls. And these are all angled, mind you, too, and they can be accessed, so when you have this thing all closed up, that might be an easier way to get inside. And speaking of the inside, let's twirl this around and I'll show you what's going on. We've got a bit of a control center over here with, as it turns out, some actual printed pieces within Atlantis. They're nothing special, they're definitely all repeats. And then on the other side, some more interior details. 2 fire hydrants or other gas containers, a computer, and a fish. Another fun feature here that you're gonna find is a treasure map, one that isn't all that common. I accidentally took it out when I was trying to reconstruct the Black Pearl, I think, because that's one of the few sets that it comes in. The back of the submarine is definitely the least interesting part. A little gray and flat, but I definitely don't hate it. Also, of course, you better believe it, there are more flick-fire missiles here on the back. While I think we're all used to seeing $70, $80, $90, $100 bases out of this era of LEGO, I think at $50, this manages to be very respectable and quite a fun playset. The transforming feature is just amazing. You can never go wrong with that, and I feel like that all of a sudden doubles the value you can get out of this set. Really great design. Well, I hope you aren't sick of transforming vehicles, because I've got another fun one for you. This is the most uncreatively named set in the entirety of Atlantis, the Undersea Explorer. And some of you might know this, but the set has a rather fascinating history in that the concept for the Undersea Explorer, that is the diver mech here, is actually recycled from power miners, according to the designer, Mark Stafford. Mark Stafford is so great. He's one of the few designers from this era who gave a bit of a behind-the-scenes look at how some of these sets were created. So this set also was a retail exclusive, which very much limited what countries and who could get their hands on it. So it tends to be a bit more rare of a set. Many of the retail exclusive sets that we've revisited throughout the course of this series do seem to be half-baked ideas at best. Look at Boulder Blaster from Power Miners, or even worse, Combat Crawler x2 from Exoforce. This is definitely not one of those instances. I feel like this is a really strong model, and it's really too bad that it saw such a limited release. It only comes with a single minifigure, that's Bobby Bowie, but you still get a substantial diver's build and a substantial undersea guardian. The Sea Serpent is probably the weakest part of the set. He's a little goofy, but there's some fun techniques and parts usage going on here, like in so many of the other Atlantis builds. It makes liberal use of that fun fin Technic piece for the tail. Plenty of stickers here, somehow fitting 6 on his head alone. But once again, I'm a sucker for that runic detailing. The vial definitely opens wide enough to fit a key, or better yet, a minifigure inside, which is pretty much all I can ask of these creatures. So in that regard, he passes the test. Otherwise, just a bit too weird and spindly looking to be one of my favorites from the lineup. The mech, however, I think looks brilliant. The red plastic wheels really bulk the thing out nicely. We've got these fuel tanks or oxygen tanks in the legs as well. The feet are really bulky. I love the simple but effective detail here on the top and the arms. Flick fire missiles, of course. Some tubing, which just looks great in this underwater setting. The format is similar to many Exoforce mechs, where you've got a weapon in one hand and then a free hand in the other. Perfect for grabbing the red shark key that's included in this set. But the best feature is that this all all transforms. It's not terribly complicated, but it is a pretty impressive transformation. The wheels, yes, give a little bit of it away, but I still like it a lot. If you really want to make this thing look sleek, you can send the arms all the way back, but you can also use the arms in driving mode too. Ultimately, you're left with something like this, which, once again, looks pretty good. It's a really thorough transformation and it feels intentional. You don't have to disassemble and reassemble anything to get it into this state, which I really do appreciate, and you'll be ready and rearing to go back as a mech if you so choose. Once again, some really effective design work on display. It's kind of funny that Wave 2 had 2 transforming vehicles when there's only 4 sets altogether. It would have been cool if that was a more deliberate part of the entire Atlantis theme. It just pops up sporadically though. But when they utilize it, they kind of do it perfectly. Now, of course, I'm left to wonder what this would have looked like as a Power Miners vehicle. Mysterious Power Miners vehicle number 13, perhaps? Well, folks, we've finally made it to what might be one of the coolest LEGO sets ever. This is, of course, the Portal of Atlantis, the flagship release for the summer. At just over 1,000 pieces, this is by far the largest Atlantis set. There was, of course, a lot of marketing that went into teasing this set. You saw that in the instruction booklets from Wave 1, Atlantis the movie, and within the design of the sets themselves. What were all these keys intended to unlock? Well, that's finally all answered here. First off, let's take a look at these minifigures. You get 3 divers in this set, and you see 2 of them using some pretty fun attachments with that new helmet piece. Lights on the side of Axel's helmet, and then an extra little propeller on the back of a Speedman. This one actually making use of the anti-studs on the bottom of the air tanks. Also returning is another highly desirable Squid Warrior. You can never have too many of these. They look incredible. You've got a Shark Warrior as well, which is fitting, given the very shark-centric design of the entire Portal build. And then we've got one newcomer, the Portal Guardian. This guy is decked out in some of just the most beautiful armor ever released by LEGO, colored here in the very elusive black speckle gold color. A color that is actually completely exclusive to these 2 elements within the Atlantis theme. There is one last minifigure, a very dark Easter egg over here on the side. That is the skeleton of an Aqua Raider. I wonder if they had a few extra helmets lying around, but that's a dark little note, but I do love it. Tying this into the Aqua Raiders universe. Perhaps the sea creatures that the Aqua Raiders ran into were also tasked with guarding Atlantis. This seems to be as close as the Raiders ever got to finding the Lost City though. Anyway, let's move these guys aside so we can get a better look at this beautiful, beautiful model. It is undoubtedly huge, taking up quite an impressive footprint with its 1,000 pieces. The wings of the model are hinged, so you just get a bit more of a dynamic look. Folding it up certainly doesn't create anything interesting, but maybe it makes it a bit easier to carry around. If you do purchase this set, there is one thing you need to absolutely be mindful of, and that is the fact that it is riddled with brittle dark red. And that becomes really apparent with one of the dark red exclusive recolors of this set, the staircases. They're fragile, flimsy builds all on their own, and throw in a brittle plastic and you're almost guaranteed to break some when you build this set. And since the part has never been redone in dark red, there's no way to really replace it. Hopefully LEGO will remedy that at some point, but yeah, for now I'm gonna have to cope with a shattered staircase. To get into the structure itself, you enter through the Shark Gate. When you open it up, the jaws follow along and it creates a very grand entrance. Ironically though, opening this up blocks access further up the staircase and you'll have to close it again a little more manually this time around. Oh, and it creaks so nicely to get figures all the way up to the top. There's also alternate access points on the side where you'll find even more brittle dark red staircases to take you up to that top platform as well. Flanking either side of the portal are these little shark builds, rather cleverly built using some upside down construction for the heads with some sticker detailing. Not too overkill on the stickers though. You get the rune detailing on the heads of the shark in the middle, and the sharks on the side. And to the best of my knowledge, I think that's it. Nothing wrong with 5 stickers. So the sharks can either serve as statues or as actual guardians of the portal, or both. The portal at the top is quite beautiful. There's a fun function associated with it too. You've got plenty of the key holders, and the idea is that once you get all 5 keys, and this set does come with all 5 keys, which is fantastic, spinning this opens the portal. You definitely gotta really twist it to make it happen, but it's such a cool effect. It's such a great play feature. Now, this set unfortunately doesn't include the lost city of Atlantis, so it gives you a treasure chest behind the portal as a compromise, filled with 4 pretty common Lego jewels. Better than nothing, but a little disappointing, I must say. But that's nowhere near all that this set has to offer, because if we spin it around, we've got some crazy interior. The wings of the portal are pretty empty, but you've got a few accessories, and I do appreciate how these interiors and the accessories add a whole level of mystery as to who inhabited this place or currently inhabits this place. On this side, you'll find a frog in a jar with what appears to be a bottle of perfume, and then some weapons further down. The middle actually has 2 separate layers. There is a bed on the bottom, and then above that you'll find a treasure map with a golden goblet. Lovely to see this black arch piece used 4 times in this center build. That only appears in 2 other sets. That's going to be the 2011 Diagon Alley, and then it showed up in a hidden side set as well. Moving on over here to the other side of the bed, you'll find a whip and handcuffs. Lego, what the? And spinning things back around again, I do like how these exterior sections are detailed with these beautiful gold gates. The parts are used really efficiently to maximize the size of this, but it doesn't feel like it's come at the expense of the detailing in the set. Yeah, this one is awesome. If you had this as a kid, this is definitely one that you would flex on all of your friends. So I've taken you up to the library because it's story time. This is the Brickmaster Atlantis edition. If you watched the Fantasy Era revisiting that Brad's Archives and I put together, you'll be familiar with this concept. Basically, it's a super thick book that has a ton of Lego pieces inside, and then instructions on how to use those parts to create a variety of different models. In this case, 14, so it claims. I found this book to be especially fascinating because, like we mentioned earlier, it's got a few little lore tidbits that it drops in the beginning. Here you see the bio for Bobby Booey, as well as the Manta Warrior. Manta Warrior lives on the large seaweed bed of the ocean. He has the body of a man, but the head of a manta ray fish. He is very suspicious of humans and moves around very quickly. He likes to chase his own tail. Manta Warrior also likes to bite. Luckily, he is quite shy, so he does not do it very often. I'm always impressed with these Brickmaster books because they tend to have really good models, and this has got to be quite the challenge for the designer. In the case of this set, it says that there's more than 140 bricks, but 140-ish bricks is not a lot to work with. But check out how great this model is. This is better than some of the small subs that we saw in sets, especially the one from Shadow Snapper. I'd much rather have this. So each set of instructions has usually an assembly for the good guys and for the guardians. It's all very creative, and I love the style of these books. Great stuff all around. And at least once upon a time, you would have been able to download additional instructions from LEGO's website. But this, of course, is not the only supplementary gear item that LEGO would have released for Atlantis. There was actually quite a few. LEGO Atlantis especially has a lot of keychains, which is great because so many of the minifigures are just fantastic. Here I have the Portal Emperor. I believe you can find this on Bricklink new for less than $3. He's way too cool to get battered up on my actual keychain, so I think I'll just keep him around in storage for now. A bit of spoilers for Wave 3, but you can also see some pretty sweet magnet packs. I believe at this point LEGO was gluing these all together, so unfortunately this is not a cheap way to get the Lobster Guardian, who we'll take a look at in just a second. And while we're talking about small sets, I definitely want to point out all the various polybags that were released for Atlantis. 2 of them even get featured in the catalog with descriptions, which is pretty wild. Up first we have the Manta Warrior, a very simple 13-piece set, and what you're paying for here is primarily the Manta Warrior minifigure. The catalog says, "Treasure seekers beware. Lurking behind this seaweed-covered rock is a fearsome Manta Warrior, prepared to do battle with anyone who dares to search for the long-lost sunken city of Atlantis. The Sea Jet is the diver's Wave 1 polybag, and it's really not all that interesting, but it does feature a lot more pieces than the Manta Warrior did at 23 parts. Search out Atlantis treasure keys, guardian sea creatures, and sunken treasure with a sleek and speedy Sea Jet, is what the catalog has to say of it. One of my favorite polybag sets would have been included with the Brickmaster magazine. Brickmaster was a special version of LEGO Club essentially, which was a paid subscription, but every other month, they'd send you a pretty substantial polybag. And there were some great ones over the years, and this has got to be one of my favorites. It's a mini version of the Neptune Carrier. Seeing these side by side, you can tell that it did a really good job of recreating the larger set at this much smaller scale, especially when you consider the limited parts available at the time. Remember, Atlantis came out well over 15 years ago. That's crazy to think about. Yeah, this one was a real treat to get in the Brickmaster magazine back in the day. And yet there were still 3 more polybags released later in 2010. This one is titled Octopus, though it definitely reminds me much more of the squids that we've been seeing throughout the theme so far. There's a lot of cool parts in here for a polybag, the best of which is one of the Atlantean keys, the shark key here. Yeah, the squid key would have made more sense, but imagine being able to get this for under $5. Pretty sweet. Definitely not the best looking build, but like I said earlier, amazing parts pack. This polybag is simply titled Piranha. It's a very unique Atlantean sea creature, but I do love it a lot. It's got a surprising amount of elements in here, and once again, it's got a key. This time, this guy has the squid key. Probably should have swapped the shark key and the squid key for these polybags, but what do I know? The blue of the squid key definitely contrasts nicely against the red mouth of the Piranha. Simple build, but still lots of fun at this price point. My favorite polybag of them all, though, has to be the Mini Sub. It's designed so differently than all the other mini submersibles that we've seen throughout this series, and I kind of like the more realistic spin this has on it. It's nowhere near as sleek as the other designs. It's much more armored and utilitarian. Once again, some really fun pieces here with the old magic ball from Castle, these fence pieces, an extra bit of found treasure. But ultimately, I just think it's remarkable that with this amount of pieces, you can make something so interesting and different. A pretty perfect little polybag. In addition to the polybags, keychains, books, and magnets, you'll still find plenty of other random Atlantis accessories, like squirt guns fittingly enough. Some countries even got a DVD version of the LEGO Atlantis movie. I don't think there's an English copy, which is most unfortunate. There's a couple foam weapons, some stationery, a watch, and then some other random items as well. All of which, unsurprisingly, besides the keychains at least, are pretty hard and expensive to get. I've only seen one current listing for the watch on eBay for $100, which is just insane. But let's head back and pick up where we left off. We had just found the portal of Atlantis, and now it's time to enter into the Lost City. The next chapter of LEGO Atlantis begins with Ocean Speeder. It's a $5 54-piece set, and it introduces us to the theme's new color scheme. LEGO has swapped out the lime of the first 2 waves for yellow. It's certainly a more successful color swap than what we saw with Power Miners in my opinion, but to me at least, like usual, it kind of fails to capture the charm of the original sets. The set includes lance spears, and here's a look at the new costume. The main notes are the same as the original, but the prints are all different, and we've got the color swap here too. Especially note the change of the helmet from dark bluish gray to light bluish gray, and the trans yellow visor here instead of trans bright green. You've got 2 main builds here, a small treasure sub-assembly, simply consisting of a golden goblet, 2 gemstones, and then a piece of seaweed. Very, very simple construction. And there is a villain to guard this treasure, and that is a sea snake. Despite its small size, I really do like the look of the Ocean Speeder. You've got a bit of posability with hinges on each of the wings of the vehicle, these lovely pearl silver rotors, and then 2 hands for grabbing the gemstones or the pesky snake. Like many of the other vehicles we've seen, the diver just trails behind it, holding on to some handlebars. It wouldn't be an Atlantis set without some stickers, but 2 isn't too bad, all things considered. It's a nice little vessel, but I promise they only get cooler from here. This is the Seabed Strider. It's another underwater mech which really doesn't feel all that practical, but much like the previous wave's underwater mech, it does transform. We'll take a look at that in a second. I do want to highlight the minifigures here. You do, of course, get another diver this time around. This time it's Axel. And the more interesting figure is a brand new villain. Yes, Wave 3 introduces all brand new Guardians, and there's going to be a lot more to see. This is the Hammerhead Warrior. I'm surprised but absolutely delighted that they decided to spice things up here in the final wave with these new creatures, because much like the first wave, they all look fantastic. Taking off this very elaborate helmet piece reveals the trick behind the figure here. A very funny transparent red head with eyeballs actually printed on there too, so you could easily use this for some sort of crazy alien or other monster. I love how they made that print really easy to reuse. Again, great printing all around the headpiece, torso, and legs. You'll love to see it. The side build here is really interesting. It's another Atlantean treasure, this time a shield. A shield perhaps belonging to the Golden King, who we'll talk about more later. It's perched atop this column, and at the time this fluted 2x2 round brick would have been new to Atlantis. It's kind of the perfect piece for the theme. Nowadays it's kind of hard to imagine a world without it, as this is included all over the place, not just for Greek and Roman columns. One of the most exciting things going on here is actually the gemstones that he's collected from the seabed floor. One of them is your regular old trans light blue, but the other one is trans orange. Believe it or not, that's only included in 2 sets, even though it's an existing mold in an existing color. The only other set was a Lego game, Orient Bazaar. So yeah, that's a pretty rare element. To transform the vehicle, we'll just fold up the legs like this, fold down these flaps, and then the legs go back, and it becomes all of a sudden a lot more aerodynamic looking. And I almost prefer it in this state, more so than the mech. The only thing that becomes a little unsightly for me is the undersides of these 2x3 tiles on each side. I just wish they would have folded, I don't know, down or something like that. I guess that's another way to potentially transform the vehicle. It's not a half bad look either. It's a little goofy, but yeah, use your imagination. There's not necessarily a right or wrong way to do this. The set also includes 2 silver spear launchers, a recolor that's actually almost exclusive to the Atlantis theme, only appearing once in a CMF. At the $10 price tag, this set definitely packs a punch. Love the new minifigure, exclusive shield, very rare jewel, a decent vehicle with a fun transforming feature. Not bad for just 100 pieces. Because Wave 3 of Atlantis focuses a lot more on the divers, it's really nice to see this set here. This, of course, is Angler Ambush, and it's just all around a fantastic set. The set includes Jeff Fisher as our diver, and we're introduced to another brand new undersea guardian, the Barracuda Warrior. And if you thought that last headdress was elaborate, take a look at this thing. This is insane, wrapping around the front and back of the torso and featuring attachment points for the classic Lego tooth element introduced in Vikings. This piece connects directly to the neck of a minifigure, and taking it off, you can actually see the mouth is printed on the torso. Very clever parts design. I love how this looks. It's equal parts goofy and terrifying, which I think Atlantis has walked that line really well throughout the entirety of the theme. There's another small treasure side build here, featuring our most complete look at that Corinthian column, really pretty, and a treasure chest here done in pearl gold hides some fun secrets. 2 gemstones, and then that same Atlantean helmet that we saw on the Portal Guardian in the Portal of Atlantis set. Done up, of course, again in that exclusive Atlantis color of black speckle gold. You don't see that every day. There's another small diver submersible here. Nothing too special. It's once again got a grabbing arm for grabbing helmets, jewels, or otherwise, and another silver spear gun. Most of the detail, unfortunately, is accomplished with stickers. The highlight here, though, is the anglerfish himself. This guy looks sweet. Love the dark green color scheme. It's not quite as bold and striking as the other sea creatures that we see from the line with the black and the really vibrant accent color, but for a more realistic and easily repurposed fish, I think this is actually quite nice. The eyes are built with the crazy big 4x4 dome pieces, which I love. Plenty of sticker detailing on here too, but the highlight is the jaw. This play feature mirrors what we saw in the Guardian of the Deep, the big shark from Wave 1. And while the actuator here on the bottom isn't integrated as smoothly, it's still really fun to play with. Look at all these teeth, including a gold tooth here on the top. That's just fantastic. The fins are done with the classic dragon wing piece, exclusively recolored here in dark green. Up top, he's got flippers for more fins, and then in order to draw in some greedy treasure hunting divers, he's got, fittingly, a crystal done in trans neon green. I do love that touch. I think Jeff might fall for the bait, to be totally honest with you. Weirdly enough, the back fin can only be spun rather than swung side to side. Not a huge deal, but I feel like it would have been worth just adding in that extra bit of articulation. Again, this would have been $20 back in the day, so I feel like you would have gotten more than your money's worth here. There's just so much great stuff going on here, and you've got everything you could possibly want. You've got the diver vehicle, you've got the treasure station, you've got a big villain, you've got a wonderful minifigure. What's not to love? Now, this is incredibly exciting. While trying to get all the sets together for this wave, one that I was missing was the Deep Sea Raider, a set that I've never owned. And for whatever reason on Bricklink, it was actually cheaper to buy a set new than it was used. This was something like $35 if I'm not mistaken. Just going to show that Atlantis sets are surprisingly affordable still on the aftermarket. So it's going to be a delight to actually crack this open for the first time here for this video. Let's take a closer look. Building a set right out of the box like that is just such a cool experience, especially when you haven't paid a whole lot for the set. There's no guilt, it's just a good time. The only fun bit of packaging that came up throughout that build experience that I want to address is the individually bagged armor piece. So the Angler Ambush set came with the helmet for the Portal Guardian. This set comes with the chest plate. Pretty cool. The Hammerhead Warrior makes a return here. No complaints there. Great figure, you really can't go wrong with any of the Guardians. Funnily enough, the Diver this time around is the more interesting character. For whatever reason, it would appear that Brains from Power Miners has joined in on the Atlantis expedition. Given the fact that this vehicle does seem like something of a mining vehicle, perhaps that makes sense. Here he gets an exclusive face print, just a slightly modified Atlantean version of his usual face. What a fascinating example of inter-theme connectivity. As a kid, this would have made my imagination run wild. Like all the other sets too in this wave, we get a little treasure side build. In addition to the beautiful black speckled gold chest plate, you also get 3 gemstones in the treasure chest here. But the real treasure here is an exclusive recolor of the crab in dark red. Somehow, dark red, a very crab color, has never been redone outside of this set in 2011. That is absolutely bonkers to me, but it makes this set all the more special. But what you're paying for is this guy, the Deep Sea Raider. Just now, I had a ton of fun building this. It's a really sleek design, as we have come to expect from the Atlantis theme. But not only are there some really fun play features in here, but there's also just great parts usage throughout. At the time, this would have been absolutely revolutionary. But in the front, in order to protect the glass, you can see that the designer, Mark Stafford here, has made use of the hot dog piece in black. At the time, that would have been a brand new recolor. And in fact, it would go on to be exclusive to this set for 6 years before it finally started showing up in more sets. And now, as I'm sure you all know, they're recoloring that piece all the time and using it in all sorts of crazy ways. But really cool to see it here, especially in a regular old playset line. I love the Power Miners roll cage serving as armor for the engines in the back. Of course, you've got the 2 arms, one with a Power Miner's drill on it, the other a grabby claw for picking up treasure as you scour the seabed floor. Moving the hot dog section back allows you to lift the glass up, where you can fit one minifigure, maybe even with flippers on? Not quite, but that's okay, because somehow, and I never knew that about this set, there actually is a storage compartment for flippers in the back. You know, the thing I've been asking for throughout this video, they finally did it here in the end. That's awesome. Opening the trunk of the vessel, you'll find a crate that has room for all sorts of flippers. You can carry the flippers of the entire team around in the cargo bay of this vehicle. But that's not the only thing to be found back here. You also get a mini version of the Deep Sea Raider, remotely controlled, as you can see here with the antenna. Strangely enough, they haven't included any sort of walkie-talkie or any other way to simulate controlling this remotely. Still, really fun. I always love a vehicle inside another vehicle. And when you can do that with a set of this size, it's all the more impressive. The last thing I guess I should point out is the fact that we've got, you better believe it, more flick-fire missiles. Yep, this one lived up to the hype for me. Not bad at all for the $30 it would have cost back in 2011. Of course, I do have the instruction booklet here, and this is the only Wave 3 booklet that I have, so we'll have to take a look at that back page spread, which showcases all 5 of the Wave 3 sets. Well, with that, there's just one more set to go. We have finally arrived. Welcome to the city of Atlantis. And of all the Atlantis sets, this might just be the most desirable. That's certainly reflected in the rather absurd aftermarket prices that this particular set demands, but as we take a closer look at the contents, I think it will become apparent why that is. It is a wonderful way to round out the series. At 686 pieces, this easily takes the second place spot on the largest Atlantis sets list, trailing only behind, naturally, the Portal of Atlantis. That thing's something else altogether. Yet this set manages to feel just as well-rounded, and there's plenty of fun things to see here. First of all, we need to take a look at the minifigures. The set includes 5 altogether. First of all, you get 2 divers, Dr. Samantha Rhodes, and Ace Speedman. The Barracuda Guardian also makes a return here, but I've got absolutely no complaints about that. But there is one brand new and exclusive Guardian in this set, and that's the Lobster Guardian. This little guy looks insane. Going for about $70 on the aftermarket in good condition, the Lobster Warrior is indeed the most valuable Atlantis minifigure. He's covered in all sorts of delightful exclusive parts and probably constructed in very brittle dark red. Thankfully, those wonderful claws and that headpiece just seem to be made out of a slightly different dark red plastic, as the color doesn't seem to quite match the rest of the bricks in the set. Hopefully that means they're less susceptible to cracking. Even so, I'm not taking them apart to find out. Like the Barracuda Guardian, he has a face printed onto his torso, which becomes visible through the hole in the headdress piece. Really, really cool. And there's also attachments on the back for those Paraka spine elements in orange, an exclusive recolor to this set, as well as some orange teeth beneath them. Just an elaborately decorated figure. Absolutely spectacular. You'll have to go looking a bit harder though if you want to find the 5th and final figure in this set. For that's the real treasure of Atlantis, the Golden King. Is he a statue, a god, just a dude living here? That might be left up to your imagination. But once again, the designers have brought in the key functionality into this set to reveal him. The set gives you an exclusive new purple Atlantean key, which can be used to find the Golden King. Like some of the other mechanisms, you really got to twist on this thing, but you get quite the fun surprise. The minifigure pops right out of the ground, right here in center stage, framed perfectly. So fantastic. There's really fun printing, and quite the mixture of gold applications making up this figure, with the black speckled gold chest plate, the pearl gold body and trident, and then the drum lacquered gold for the helmet. It doesn't all work perfectly together, but he's still pretty darn cool. The figure does have a double-sided face, one done up in the pearl gold, making him appear like a statue, but if you spin it around, he becomes a living, breathing human being. There's certainly quite the element of magic that goes into this whole theme, and I'm here for it. The mechanism is really easy to reset, it goes down a lot easier, and then you can put the cover back on top. But we'll explore the rest of the city here in a second. I also want to touch on some of the side builds that are included, like this creepy crawly crustacean. It's not abundantly clear to me what this is supposed to be. It could be imitating a lobster to mirror the Lobster Guardian included in this set. It definitely has some crab-like features, but it's a bit too long for that. I think it's perfectly fine, nothing too exciting, but you do love to see more of those orange Paraka spines. Once again, an exclusive recolor to this set, but you do get 4 of them. You also get the Artemis. I feel pretty confident that you could fit a figure in here with flippers. Yes, finally, thank goodness. And like so many Atlantean vehicles before it, it's got flick fire missiles. Nothing too special otherwise, but I think it looks perfectly serviceable. Perfectly serviceable is not what I'd say about the city itself, which looks quite magnificent, making quite liberal use of those beautiful fluted column pieces. In fact, there are 83 in white altogether, by far the most ever included in any set ever. The next closest, interestingly enough, is going to be the 56 in light bluish gray included in the UCS Venator of all things. Though I've already revealed the main play feature of this set, there's still plenty of secrets to be found. You'll already find yourself in danger just by entering the courtyard. Pressing this in has an axe swinging down atop your head. And also on this archway you'll see a really fascinating piece. That's the ornamental fish recolored here exclusively in pearl gold. That piece was originally introduced in old light gray in the Ninja line. It's used as roof and other decoration throughout the theme. Belleville also tended to use the part a lot, sometimes in some really interesting transparent colors. Making your way along the courtyard, you'll have to watch out for the falling column. Simple but effective feature. And then you'll find your way to the foot of the stairs, which has that key locking mechanism and all sorts of wonderful seaweed pieces. You've got these big Baraki tentacles, recolored, I believe, exclusively here in green. And then complementing those, you'll get these green large flame elements made up of trans dark green and regular green. Apparently that also shows up in one Hero Factory set, but pretty rare and pretty special. In addition to the Golden King, there is another treasure chest on the side, and it's got a fish and 3 jewels in there. There's another trap up here too, just a simple trapdoor that will send you to, presumably, the dungeon below. You can access that and rescue your friends through the doors on the side, and there's a little sticker lock piece, which is pretty cool. It's too bad the set didn't include a key, perhaps hidden in the treasure chest to help you unlock that. That might have been a fun touch. Up on top, there's more fun decoration, actually some flick fire missiles hidden here in the facade, as well as more of those beautiful ornamental fish. I do kind of wish there was something hidden in the basement, but this set does do a lot all on its own, and I'm not going to fault it too hard for that. I would have loved something that sold that more as a dungeon, or perhaps the living quarters of either the Golden King or his underwater guardians. All in all, though, a really fantastic way to end out the Atlantis theme. It's a beautiful set and feels appropriately grand and majestic, especially at this time when pearl gold was nowhere near as common as it is today. You've got really fun exclusive figures, an exclusive key, amazing detail. It's a great send-off for Atlantis. Since 2011, LEGO hasn't had a proper standalone original underwater theme. Though it's been fun to return beneath the waves briefly for themes like Ninjago, Monkey Kid, and Avatar, nothing hits quite the same as Atlantis. It's bold, imaginative, fun, and excellently executed with some of LEGO's greatest minifigures and greatest playsets. And that, more than anything, is its legacy. Most of the specialized pieces that the theme introduced died with Atlantis, but the line remains an amazing example of what modern LEGO should aspire to. Affordable playsets packed to the brim with amazing figures and functionality. Atlantis is a perfect example of the LEGO group at its creative best. Between the transforming vehicles, the spectacular key functionality, or the positively mind-blowing hidden vehicles on the Neptune Carrier, this is a theme I'm always going to remember. That's gonna about do it for today's revisiting episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I want to extend a special thank you to all my channel members. As you can imagine, making a video like this can be quite expensive. It was a lot of Atlantis sets to purchase. These people listed here on the side are the only reason I was able to make a video like this and will continue to be able to make videos like this. But also thank you to you for sticking it out here to the end. I know this was a very long video, but I hope you thoroughly enjoyed it. So until next time, I hope you have yourself a fantastic life.